It was an ordinary Tuesday, one that diluted in the routine, when the clock scored 15:17 and my notebook screen illuminated a notification that would change everything. Outside Moscow sky, grey and heavy as a damp blanket, combined with the cold coffee I had as I reviewed quarterly reports. It was then that a new file appeared in the Yandex disk shared folder, a cruise reserve in the Black Sea in the name of my husband, Dmitry Trofimov. Not any cabin, but a luxury suite with a French balcony on the ship Knyaz Vladimir, 5 days of paradise route, with champagne on arrival, VIP dinners and spa treatments for 2. Detail, next to his name, another shone like a knife in the chest, Victoria Rudneva. I didn't shed a tear. They didn't shake my hands. Something inside me left in silence, like melted glass that solidifies under cold water. 15 years of marriage, and suddenly everything gained sharp, almost unbearable clarity. I analyzed each line of the reserve with the accuracy of a surgeon. Sochi departure the following week, just when Dmitry should be in St. Petersburg for the Economic Forum. Cabin 404, 4th deck, right side. All meticulous, transfer, restaurants, until the hours of the excursions. A romance he hadn't dedicated to me for a decade. On last year's anniversary, his gift was a secret voucher bought by the secretary, of course. "I'm going to be late in the office, don't wait," said the message I received an hour earlier. Dry, impersonal, without a love or dear. After all, there was a long time that he wrote like this. I got up and went to our room. Its suits, aligned as soldiers in the cabinet, dark grey, navy, black dash, stressed shirts, ties in special hangers. Suddenly that successful executive look seemed to me a cheap costume, the scene of a piece in which I, without realizing it, interpreted the naive. I wanted to tear everything from the shelves, cut your favorite Bryony into pieces, but I stopped. An idea already took shape in my head. The cell phone vibrated. Another update in the cloud. This time, a photo, a young blonde, in lace lingerie, posing in front of the mirror of a dressing room. The labels still hanging in the handles. "I can barely wait until you take it out of me on our trip. I'm telling the time." I recognized Victoria Rudneva at the same time, the new director of customer relationships at my husband's company. The same one he had insisted on inviting our corporate Christmas dinner, who looked at me with a smile of disguised pity, as if I were an disposable object. It was then that I remembered, 3 months ago, at the event in Barvika, Victoria showed off her engagement ring, talking non-stop from the ceremony scheduled for June. I opened the contact. His profile was full of radiant bridal photos, with hashtags like #NeuveFelice and #Concierge-Regressive. And there he was, Andrei Kornev, his fiancé, founder of a promising startup of Skolkovo, ambitious, full of motivational posts and photos on conference stage. Among them, a recent publication, solo flight to a weekend on the seaside before the madness of the wedding. I need to recharge the energies to start a new life. The dates beat perfectly. The puzzle pieces fitted. 2 betrayal suckers, me and that entrepreneur. 2 rats, my husband and her bride. And a single cruise where the 4 would meet, stuck in the same space. I opened the website of the navigation company. In 20 minutes, the confirmation arrived. Cabin 406, 4th deck, right side. Right next to their nest of love. Sometimes the universe presents us with opportunities so perfect that it would be sin not to take advantage of them. I located Andrei's corporate email on your company's website. I wrote straight to the point. "Andrei, we need to talk urgently. This is your bride, Victoria Rudneva, and my husband, Dmitry Trofimov. They plan a cruise together next week while you travel alone, and he is supposed to be in St. Petersburg. Attachment the vouchers. I can find it tomorrow, at the time it is best for you. No tears, no dramas." I just watched the delivered and red brands appeared, followed by those 3 dots that indicated that he typed. The answer came in 3 minutes, tomorrow, 10 a.m. in point, in the coffee shop Coffeekiss. The next day, sitting in a corner away from the establishment, I saw when he entered. Tall, firm posture, look of those who are used to resolving crises. Our looks crossed through the room, and I read the same thing I felt. The world had collapsed, but the rubble had not yet hit us. He sat in front of me, without greetings or rodeos. "Show everything you have," he said bass. Open the notebook was like opening the Pandora box. Prints, photos, messages. By the time our coffees were cool, we were already two strangers united by a common purpose. Do you know what is the most disgusting part? I asked, allowing me a crooked smile. They think they are smart. Who have deceived us? Andrei's face darkened. And what do you propose? I leaned forward, lowering my voice. I've booked the cabin beside it. But, let's face it, a single spoiling their honeymoon doesn't have the same strength as two. He narrowed his eyes. You are suggesting. I am suggesting that we board this cruise together, as inseparable friends, appearing in every corner they are, turning their romance into a nightmare they will never forget. Andrei smiled a cold, calculating smile, who already traced the plan on his head. But it has to be intelligent. It is not enough to spoil the trip. We need to destroy their fantasy in such a way that they never have the courage to lie. I nodded. Between pain and anger, a strange excitement grew. When we went back to Sochi, they would never want to be born. In the week before the match, I played my role as a perfect wife to perfection. I helped Dmitry pack her bags to the conference, chose ties, passed shirts, even took him to Domodedovo Airport. I'll miss you, he lied at the check-in counter, looking beyond my head. Time will pass fast, I answered with a sweet smile as I thought about the clothes that were already packed in Andrei's rented apartment. His flight was not for St. Petersburg, but for Sochi. But that, my husband didn't need to know. I found Andrei every day to adjust our story, old college friends who, coincidentally, met on the cruise. Me, interior designer, he, the same entrepreneur as usual. No romantic insinuations. A pure, harmless friendship. It was essential. We studied the ship's map until decorating each corridor, we reserved the same excursions as the unfaithful couple, a walk through the blue bay of Gorgipia in Anapa. Do you take it? Asked Andrei. 15 years, after all. Do you know what I feel? I confessed. Now I want to cry until we pass out, sometimes throw them both in the sea. He grunted. I researched maritime law. Unfortunately, that gives jail. Black humor broke the tension. I first laughed that week. We embarked separately, as agreed. The meeting would be after we settled. Cabin 406 was cozy, French balcony, sea view, just as in the photos. I leaned my ear on the wall that separated me from 404. Silence. Their flight would only arrive in 2 hours. I disembarked the dresses I had bought especially for the occasion, bold, vibrant pieces, which Dmitry had never seen. Clothes that shouted everything I hadn't said in 15 years. An old acquaintance of my father. For certain favors, there are always those who remember blood ties, he used to say. That folder was my secret weapon, the material proof that their casual affair was actually a well-established routine. Each photo, each that stamp. Each reserve in the name of Mr. and Mrs. Petrov, yes, they wore such original pseudonyms, was like a slow stab in the chest that I had endured for months. But now the pain had become something more sharp. Something useful. Andrei ran her fingers down the edge of the photos, her eyes shining with a mixture of admiration and repressed fury. They have no idea what's coming, have it? His voice was low, almost a growl. Tomorrow night, when they enter that hall with their plastic smiles and designer clothes, they will feel the kings of the world. Until they look at our table. I smiled. Not that trembling smile on the brink of collapse, but the one who finally holds the reins of the game. Exactly. And we will let them drown in their own hypocrisy. I opened the closet and took the dress I had chosen for dinner, a black strapless, so fair that it seemed sewn on the skin, with a neckline that descended to where Dmitry's imagination had never dared to go. It will be an unforgettable night. For all of us. Andrei understood without me having to explain. He had also prepared tailored suits, a clock that cost more than our entire cruise, the posture of a man who not only belonged to that elite, but dominated it. They will underestimate us, he said, adjusting the tie. They'll think we're two crazy people desperate for revenge. But madmen don't plan. They don't study. They don't expect the right time to tighten the trigger. I took the glass of wine that he offered me and toast to our reflection in the cabin window. to poetic justice. The dark liquid danced in the sunset light, as red as the anger I had consumed for weeks. But that anger no longer burned without control. Now it was a cold, calculated flame. Tomorrow, when they see us sitting at the main table, laughing and toasting like old friends, they'll start sweating. Because they'll realize something: we're not here to cry. We're here to win. And as the ship cut the dark waters from the sea, I took the cup to my lips and sipped slowly, savoring the bitter taste of the wine and the sweet anticipant of victory. The private detective proved to be a professional not only competent but understanding. Especially after I exposed the situation clearly and offered generous compensation for consulting services. Because, you see, when a husband boasted always reserves the same line of cruises for business trips, he is not just being predictable, he is drawing a map. I organized the photos by date. 8 cruises in 18 months. Always to peers. Always under the disguise of corporate meetings. This is not a case, Andre headed, analyzing the documents. This is a second marriage, with first-class hypocrisy. And tomorrow, they will find out that we know everything. Not just about this trip. Above all. We planned until midnight. Each casual meeting, every word, every calculated pause. No improvisation. Only cold strategy, like a chess where each piece is already sacrificed before the first movement. Asterisk. In the morning, tour to the Gorgipia Museum. We climbed the bus just behind them. Vika cringed in the seat, as if the fabric burned his skin. Dima tried to sketch a smile, that man who still thinks he can control the narrative. Good morning. Did they sleep well? I sat right behind. The smell of its cheap perfume, mixed with the sweat of despair, was almost palpable. We need to talk, Dima started, the trembling voice. Of course. I straightened the bag on my lap. We still have 3 days. There is no hurry. Time is what we are not lacking. Throughout the excursion, we kept a polished conversation. Comments on Byzantine mosaics, compliments to the amphora collection. The trivial erodes them more than any direct accusation. They whispered. They looked back. They shuddered each time our laughs echoed through the galleries. At dusk, they were on the brink of a collapse. Asterisk. Node. Official dinner, I wore a black dress with naked back. Elegant. Expensive. Purchased especially for tonight. Andre, impeccable in tuxedo, embodied the successful entrepreneur who, by chance, was about to dismantle a life of others play per piece. We entered the salon 15 minutes after them. A courteous smile. Can we join? I was already driving the chair before they could refuse. The rules of the label are a delicious trap. Retreating would be to create a scandal. And they knew that. What a wonderful night, Andre said, unfolding the napkin with surgical accuracy. Vika looked at my dress. His face paled. This model is familiar to me. Wasn't it at the corporate event in Barvika? I asked, sweet. At that time, you introduced Dima as your co-worker. A thick silence fell on the table. The waiter approached, attentive. Offer champagne, I asked, without taking their eyes off them. We are celebrating. Celebrating what? Dima's voice teared, rough. I opened the envelope. Photographs slid on the white towel as cards marked in an addicted game. Birthdays. Especially 18 months of your first cruise together. Turkey, March last year. Mediterranean, May. Crimea, July. Every time you vowed to be on work mission. The blood abandoned his face. From where? I always admired your meticulosity, I continued, turning the cup between my fingers. Same cruise company. Same cabin. This made the search much easier. Vika's hand trembled as she reached the glass of water. Andre chose that exact moment to apply the final blow. Speaking of meticulum, he opened a folder on the table. I reviewed the company's financial reports in the last 2 years. Curious the correlation between cash looting and the dates of its floating congresses. The glass froze halfway to her lips. You don't prove anything. Investors disagree. Andre smiled, cold. We had a very productive meeting yesterday. They demonstrated special interest in these documents. They were immobilized. With no way out. What do you want? Dima could barely whisper. I leaned forward, the expensive perfume invading its space. Today. Just dinner. To talk. A smile. You may tell Andre about your business plans for next year. I'm sure he would love to know which conferences will actually be romantic escapes. They looked like corpses at the table. The waiter served the champagne. To the truth, I lifted the cup, which always comes out. Dinner was a symphony of refined torture. Innocent phrases intertwined with details of their case. Each word, a precise cut. Small, almost imperceptible. But that, added, blew without mercy. To dessert, both looked sick. I left the key from a room on the table as I got up. It's the suite next door. We take turns shifts by the wall. A theatrical sigh. Acoustic proof, by the way, is terrible. Dima's face writhed. He understood, even their intimacy had been violated. Magnificent, Andre murmured when we leave, adjusting the tie. But this is just the beginning. Oh, I know, I said, feeling not joy, but a cold, crystal-clear satisfaction. The best is yet to come. I sent a message to Andre before bed, thank you for today. Tomorrow, no mercy. The answer was instantaneous, they dug their own grave. We just guaranteed they don't get out of it. I fell asleep to the sound of altered voices on the other side of the wall. A ninja of revenge. There was no permission, Dima grunted, jumping out of her chair as if the seat burned. His voice trembled between indignation and panic. Ah, but here we have another special image, I announced, waving to the sound technician. The screen illuminated with Vika's post on Instagram, an engagement ad, it radiant next to Andre, displaying a ring that ass. It would have the annual salary of an average executive. The date. 6 months ago. Just at the height of your case with my husband. The hall froze. First, a thick silence, one that precedes storms. Then the whisper began, skewed glances, sloping heads, judgments murmured between champagne cups. It was exactly the kind of scrutiny they feared so much, the same that made them hide on anonymous cruises with false names and invented stories. It seems that it is our turn to shine, Andre said, extending my hand with the elegance of a predator offering the prey the last sip of water before the attack. I accepted. And we went out to dance. A tango. Not any tango, that tango, rehearsed exhaustively during the week, each step calculated as a surgical incision. My fingers squeezed yours with the accuracy of a blade, our bodies moved in lethal sync. The hall exploded in applause. Some of admiration. Others, of late understanding. Dima and Vika escaped like rats of a sinking ship without lifting their eyes, without saying goodbye. We follow them. We found them on the dark deck where the waves hit the hull like a metronome of their misfortune. She accused him in a low but sharp voice. He retaliated with the fury of a man who perceives, too late, that it was just a pawn. Crashing, as Andre observed dryly. Perfect. But we haven't finished yet. As they locked themselves in the suite, asking for dinner in the room like punished children, I closed a deal with Cruzero's photography service. An album of memories, courtesy of anonymous admirers. Inside, professional photos of each moment of tension, their fights in the corners of the vessel, the faces contracted, the looks of guilt. And in the background, almost imperceptible in each image, us. Andre and me, always present, always watching. The photographers received a generous bonus for their artistic discretion. The cover, in gold, brought an ironic inscription, Travel of Discoveries. We observed from the shadow of the hallway while the commissioner delivered the package. By the crack of the door ajar, I saw Dima's face when she opened the album. First, the misunderstanding. Then the horror. The capitulation. Defeat. The next morning, while the ship was preparing to dock in the last port, the sound system announced with an impersonal voice. Attention, Dmitry Traximov and Victoria Rudneva, urgently address senior administration to regularize landing documents. They arrived hurry, the panic stamped on the faces. But it wasn't just the administrator who was waiting for them. There was also a representative of the Black Sea Cruises, another useful contact we cultivate. The man, impeccable in his suit, began with a tone that was pure poisoned formality. Mr. Traximov, Mrs. Rudneva. We received worrying information about possible false statements at the time of reserve. A calculated pause. Your trip was recorded as corporate expenses by AOM Meridiano, with corresponding fiscal documentation. However, here, a thin smile, the character of your stay seems to be, say, guys. What are you talking about? Dima frowned, but her voice already failed. Your corporate was used to pay for restaurants, spa, and even. A sheet of paper was touched on the table, a jewelry store in Monaco. The compliance of your company is already aware. Vika paled. We didn't do any of this. Lie. And everyone there knew. Andrei and I watched from afar, as directors watching the climax of a movie we wrote ourselves. The tests we gathered, including the messages I sent anonymously to the ethical line of your company, had already fired an internal investigation. Meanwhile, Vika received her own gift, access to the accounts of her frozen startup. The investors, alerted by Andrei, started a forensic audit. Each penny diverted, each transaction suspected, now under magnifying glass. They were paralyzed by the administration counter, watching their meticulously built worlds collapse like card castles under a relentless wind. I didn't feel joy. No hatred. Just that crystal clear, almost clinical satisfaction of seeing the balance of justice finally balances. It's not just for betrayal, I muttered to Andrei without taking my eyes off them. It is by arrogance. For the years of methodically planned lies. They thought they were untouchable. They thought they had the right to play with others' lives without paying the price, he agreed, with an almost imperceptible nod towards the couple. This is the problem of considering very intelligent. Sorry? I asked suddenly. Andrei was slow to answer. His eyes, fixed on the unfolding scene, reflected something between nostalgia and disdain. I regret having trusted those who didn't deserve it. I regret not seeing the signs before. He paused. But that. Dima and Vika indicated with a discreet gesture. Not even a drop. When they left the office, their faces were whiter than the wave foam outside. I approached, deliberately slowly, as one who knows the last sips of a rare wine. How was Cruzeiro? I asked, sweet. All your liking? My ex-husband looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. There was no anger. There was no challenge. Just fear. Fear of what I still knew. Then you could still do. That's just the beginning, he said quietly. Tomorrow, when we dock, your things will be waiting in a hotel inside boxes. The padlocks of the apartment were exchanged. Divorce papers are already with my lawyer. I turned to Vika. Oh, and for talking about losses. Do you return the sign of your wedding party? Andrei was very persuasive with his suppliers. She shuddered, as if I had slapped her. Do you know what is the worst part of betrayal? I went to both, softly. She reveals who the person is real. You both revealed themselves. I smiled, without warmth. I just made sure everyone else saw it too. Andrei and I turned around and walked away, leaving them real estate, stunned, sinking into their own ruins. That night, the last of Cruzeiro, we had dinner at the captain's table, the places originally reserved for them, now ours, thanks to a few well-placed words and newly admitted connections. The new opportunities, he lifted the Andrei cup. I touched my glass at his, feeling lighter than in years. And the truth. As painful as it may be, he added, she always frees. 6 months later, I was on the porch of my new apartment in Sochi. First line. The Black Sea stretched in front of me, infinite and unpredictable as the future that, for the first time in a long time, did not scare me, electrified me. The divorce had been surprisingly fast. Dima, in the face of a mountain of tests and an irreparable professional collapse, did not dispute a single point. His loving case cost him more than a marriage, his career. Compliance investigation resulted in relegation, formal warning and loss of bonuses. Black Sea Cruises banned him for fraud on corporate funds. As for Vika, his outcome was even more dramatic. The financial irregularities Andrei exposed were just the tip of the iceberg. The audit revealed a systematic funds deviation scheme. The case became criminal, Article 160 of the Russian Penal Code. Misappropriation. The wedding, of course, never happened. Unshaver deposits and terminated contracts aggravated their financial crisis, already shaken by legal proceedings. My phone vibrated. A message from Andre. Did I just land? Lunch. After Cruzeiro, our relationship evolved unexpectedly. It was not love, we were both too tired for new novels, but a friendship forged in the fire of the same betrayal. He had transferred the headquarters of his now prosperous startup to Sochi. A business decision that coincidentally aligned with my change. Case at 13H, I said. The bistro on the waterfront was crowded, but Andre had reserved our usual table on the porch. Upon seeing me, he got up with a genuine smile, something that, months ago, would have seemed impossible. I closed the deal in Innopolis, he announced, as soon as I sat down. The investors are euphoric. Congratulations. I raised my glass of water. It's not bad for someone whose bride tried to go bankrupt your business. He laughed, a sound that, each month, sounded more natural, less bitter. I heard some news of our friends? I asked, after the waiter served the entrances. Not directly, he said, cutting a piece of fish. But Karina saw Dima at a conference last month. Skinny, dark circles, harassed animal look. Karina, my friend from Moscow, had been my ally from the first day. And Vika? I asked, more out of curiosity than for revenge. Conditional, Andre said dryly. Integral reimbursement and community service. The parents mortgaged the apartment to pay the lawyers. We would exchange this information without triumphalism. The headquarters of retaliation had given way to something more valuable, indifference. It does not apathy, but the serenity of those who have become the page. The waiter brought the food. The conversation flowed to other topics. The conversation slid to the subjects of the present. My new consulting business, expansion plans, next week's charity event. It was between a dessert spoonful and another that Andre mentioned, almost casual. Katia wanted to know. He paused, as if weighing the words. The Black Sea Cruises sent an advertisement. New Year's Eve script. Are you planning another cruise? In fact, I had thought precisely in the opposite, to rescue the normality of that experience. A trip without traps, without dramatic revelations. Only the sea, the sun, and the tranquility of not having to decipher glances or justify one's presence. Sounds like a sensible plan, I admitted, after a moment. And you? Are you going? As friends, he added quickly, as if he was presenting the need to make it clear. I think we deserve a cruise without alien betrayals. 6 months ago, the idea would have caused me a knot in my stomach. Now, however, I nodded with a genuine smile. Lunch ended, and we walked down the waterfront, the wind bringing the salty smell of the waves. It was then that I realized how much everything had changed. That cruise, which should have been an act of revenge, eventually revealed to me something much greater, my own strength. I had survived not only to betrayal, but to the collapse of all the plans that I found unavailable. And there it was, full. You know, I said, watching the boats anchored to Marina, sometimes I even want to thank you. Andre frowned, intrigued. To thank? Why? For making me stronger than I imagined. I turned to him, indicating him with a discreet gesture. And by unintentionally, they give me a real friend. He nodded slowly, as if revived the same conclusion. I thought the same thing, he confessed. If Vika had not betrayed, I would have married a thief and liar. Today, I'm building something real. The sun danced over the waters, painting everything gold. And at that moment I understood the essence of what I had learned. The true healing does not come from revenge, no matter how sweet it seems. It is born when, from the rubble of the past, something new, honest and only yours. I need to go. Andre looked at the watch, reluctant. So about the cruise? New Year's Eve at sea? I smiled, feeling a lightness that would once have seemed impossible. New Year's Eve is perfect. The ideal way to start a new chapter. As I said goodbye, I launched one last look to the sea, the same as witnessed that CR. Decisive Cruzeiro. The water that had once carried the weight of disappointment now reflected only possibilities. The horizon was open, the future was not written, and for the first time in years it was waiting for what would come with a sincere, almost childish curiosity. The best was yet to come. And this time, I would be ready to receive it.